Welcome to TradeTheNBI.com. This is John. This report is for the 31st and last day of October. Well, we've survived pretty well given the fact that there was so much doom and gloom for October in general. I mean, if we go back to the beginning of the month was right here, we pretty much stayed flat throughout most of it. And let's see what the first date close was right there, 2153. So 20 points off of that's negligible. We have suffered some decay just recently in the readings here. We've seen the midterm buyers in green failing off. We've seen an inability of long-term buyers to want to actually accelerate into a narrowing election, as we've seen, and we've seen shorts rising through this setup. Short-term buyers have been back and forth throughout, easing off, and so we had a little bit of a buy that kind of faded here as orange dipped back into this capture range between the red DOC and the cyan, which usually indicates a continuation, which is where we're sort of stuck right now at this particular point. Wouldn't take much for a turnaround. We just need the midterm buyers to activate a little bit. But again, this becomes an easy one because now you have the green 2121 as the marker short below and long above, and then you also have the yellow 2126 as a secondary pivot range, and I think that makes it easy. We're seeing lower shakeout, not great. We had a peak low there at minus 801. We're now at minus 818, so it's continuing to fade a little bit. I think that means you've got to be a little bit cautious going into this final phase. But again, we're going to start out with beginning of November. At this particular point, there's no change in the perception of things. We do have that late Friday FBI release. Not sure the impact of that yet. We noticed, and I talked about it on the Skype chat where I was mentioning how it seemed that we had seen a few algos fading in their participation in the market, and it's interesting that you would then have such potentially climatic news. We don't know what its overall effect is going to be, and some of it may just be cautiousness, wanting to wait out volatility leading up to it and not be in a position where their algorithms could go haywire in what I would call thin volume, where you would see far less number of contracts, and particularly in futures, and that can create some pretty dramatic swings. Tend to level off, yes, but it can be quite violent in between. So I think that that's just a precautionary move in some cases. Here we have the NQ, also below all of those ABM values. Those were the last readings before it moved to a short viewpoint going on. Continuing drop now, just having it below the shakeout in the negative territory, whereas the Dow and ES had been there consistently, and not quite with the orange in between the range, but it looks like it could be heading that way. So a little bit of strain there, and you can see the Dow much more even, a little bit of flight to quality, still stuck in that same range. As long as that orange is stuck between those two, it's going to have a little problem and a consistent weakness in that shakeout, not even close to where the NASDAQ had been. So we're getting a little leveling out of that, a little bit of once you get to that minus 22 range with the DOC red, we usually look for some type of pop. And in this particular case, we got just that, and still too far out to get a buy signal off of this dip below the red line, but needless to say, it was just a nice turnaround counter. It's already overbought, of course, in that, but it may level out. This was an extreme move, getting us right down to the bottom range of, right there in the 108.5 range. That was quite a dip very quickly for not a whole lot of reason. TLT, yeah, this we expected because it was just no way to sustain where it was at, given where things are. I mean, there's just no justification for it at this particular point. Rates are going to have to be looking more towards at least a modest modification, if not rise. And also, too, that big impact on election as far as policy goes. So that will be more volatile, as well as oil at this particular point. I mean, a turn on in the U.S. spigot could further deteriorate oil even with where it's at. It's been seen a little bit, and a little flight to risk safety with everyone for gold. A little bit of a pop-up right there, breaking into a new zone. Minus 10 on the red DOC. Got above the negative 13. And shakeout working on its way. It's the best we've seen since well back in before the decline started happening. So it's been a steady, gradual kind of just accumulation and now it looks like we might be ready to see that finally break out of that zone. For the 4-1 case chart here, we can see that we broke down from that, and it's pretty much stayed in just a general negative cycle. We've had a few buys take place within it, but overall, it's been a steady short algorithm lead. It's all we've done is just hit the short algorithm and fall back just below the long algo and come right back to it. So that's been a steady deterioration of the 5K chart. We had a few moves, crossovers coming back, and then it just decayed, and we started to see some decent buys that came in as the shakeout and moving above that negative 13.5, particularly above the long algo, and that led to a decent increase, even though it was choppy, which can be a pain in the butt when it goes back and forth like that. You just have to stick with overall direction. In this particular case, it even changed a lot with the algorithms, and that just shows you how much volatility was taking place throughout this whole end day situation. That's what can happen when news becomes the reactor. And in this particular case, whether it was known by some or not, all we have is anecdotal evidence of we noticed that there was a decline in algorithm activity. No change in this blind hawk situation at this particular point, so that's just chugging away doing nothing. But it does point to the upside bias in general, and even though we're seeing a little bit of weakness in the daily, it's within potential turnaround. But for now, we just have to go with what is. Still working on a couple of adjustments. I'll probably be sending these out late Monday for the indicator renewals, so you can look for your inbox on those to see them, because I wanted to get a couple of these segment changes that identify some of the key turnaround points so that they start to change color, and it would be a nice little add into where things are at with it. As always, though, continue to look for me on that Skype chat and trade well, and we will see how Halloween treats the market.